Hello guys, I hope you're doing well, and today's video we will talk about Sukuna vs Gojo fights, and it is ended in chapter 236. This was one of the best fight in the series, but this was ruined by some fans and ending of the series because some fans are unsatisfied and some are complaining about it. While I really want to make a video on this topic for a long time, I have been waiting for the ending of the fight, and I was right on this because in chapter 235 we find that Gojo win, but in 236 the scenario was completely different because in chapter 235 we saw that Gojo won clearly, but in chapter 236 the scenario was completely different because Sukuna killed Gojo. He just didn't defeat him, he killed him, and we also find out that Sukuna was holding back in the entire fight. And Gojo also explained that Sukuna can beat him without even 10 shadow techniques. So it clearly means that Sukuna was the strongest from the start. But it seems like fans is not satisfied by this ending, and I am also too. Because it can go a little longer, but the result shouldn't need to change. But I am fine with it. The fans who are complaining most are Gojo fans. But their logic is illogical. Because they are not complaining about the ending, but about the one particular statement of Gojo, and that is Gojo admitting that Sukuna was stronger than him even without 10 shadow technique. Come on, it was you people who are talking shit on Sukuna. You are calling him fraud for no knowledge of how fight will end. You celebrated the victory too early. It is not author's fault because you are idiots to understand the story. Because there was a setup in this fight from the start of this fight. If you can just read the manga with open eyes, you can clearly see that. But you were too busy on calling Sukuna a fraud. And look, the table completely turned on you. I am saying that you have to wait for the fight to end before making false assumptions. Let me explain what you didn't notice in the fight. When Sukuna vs Gojo started, we find out that all good guys are watching the fight, including Itadori, and they are ready to attack on Sukuna if Gojo lost. It clearly indicates that Gojo will going to lose the fight because that was the setup by JJ. If JJ truly want to make sure that Gojo win, then he will not hold all the characters. But if it was an all-out war between Team Sukuna and Team Gojo, then we can say that Gojo will defeat Sukuna and other characters will going to defeat different enemies. But the scenario was completely different. They all were waiting for Gojo's defeat. So it was more like if Gojo was defeated, they will going to fight Sukuna. And don't forget that JJ actually set up Kashimo vs Sukuna, so this fight was also clear indication of Gojo's defeat. And one of the biggest reason Gojo didn't won against Sukuna was because he was not the main character of the story. Gojo fans need to understand that Itadori is still the main character of the story, and Itadori vs Sukuna is the final fight. Because Itadori's whole goal was to kill Sukuna once and for all, and when Sukuna took over Megumi's body, then Itadori vs Sukuna was inevitable. And there are other references too. For example, Sukuna taking hits from Gojo purposely just to adapt Gojo's abilities. He used Mahoraga to adapt Infinity, because Infinity was one of the biggest and broken abilities Gojo have, and because of Infinity he was untouchable, and Sukuna only needs to find a way to bypass Infinity. That was he explained in chapter 236, and that is why Gojo also understands that only Infinity was saving him so far. I am not saying that Gojo's other abilities are weak, but I am saying that in respect to others, Infinity is head and shoulder above them. Just imagine every single villain of the story just struggle against Infinity every single time. And without a doubt, even after death, Gojo is the second strongest character in the series so far. The only character who can surpass him right now is Itadori Yuji, but we have to respect the author who gave this cool ending for Gojo. Obviously Gojo's fans will not understand this, but as a JJK fan, I will understand that this is very important for the plot of the story. But there is one important thing that should need to be addressed. Maybe some fans will not like this, but I think more fans will understand this. The fight between Sukuna vs Gojo was an amazing fight. Well drawn and well written, but it was ruined by some fans and some YouTubers. And this is not happening in this fight alone, it is happening with other manga too. I am talking about this fraud tag. This tag first given to Mihawk. He is the character of One Piece and he is also the strongest swordsman in the world. But he also need to prove that he is the strongest swordsman in the world, even though he is already strongest confirmed by Oda. But some fans started calling him a fraud because of a certain incident. Actually, he decided not going on a fight against other Yonko. That's it. And people started calling him a fraud even though we don't even know the full extent of his strength. And same thing happened in Sukuna vs Gojo. Fans started calling Sukuna fraud because he used Megumi's 10 shadow techniques. But it was illogical to even say that because Megumi's 10 shadow technique was nothing compared to Sukuna's 10 shadows.
And one of the biggest reasons that he was not a fraud because Gojo knew that Sukuna will going to use Ten Shadow and he will have to fight Mahoraga, and Gojo was already prepared for that. And we already saw that Sukuna used Ten Shadow against Yuruzu, who is weaker than Gojo. Then why Gojo fans even think that Sukuna will not going to use against Gojo? Just imagine if Sukuna killed Gojo without even Ten Shadow, then it will be more humiliating defeat for Gojo. And author's intentions were very clear from the start of the fight. Gojo used 200% Holo Purple by the help of Utahime. So technically, Gojo started the fight with a cheap shot. But that was author saying to us that this fight will not going to be fair. These two characters are already breached so many laws of the story. Saying both characters are fraud is not appropriate because indirectly these characters are written by the author of the story and they are the emotions of the author, and both characters are great in their own way. Just imagine you are drawing the best fight of your story and fans started calling one character a fraud because he is using someone else's power. Now we know that Sukuna can defeat Gojo even without 10 shadows. And now you are complaining about it because you make the wrong assumptions. It is not author's fault because authors never said that Gojo was stronger than Sukuna, and fans need to understand how hard it is to write a great story in current time. There is so much competition, but JJ still gave us one of the best fight and story, and I am really grateful for that. In the end, I just want to say that don't reach on conclusion too early on the story. Enjoy it, make arguments but not illogical ones. So that's all for today. I hope you like this video and share it and subscribe the channel.